So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone for taking time out this evening to come down here. There's been a lot of hard work by city staff and our ad hoc street funding committee, and we'd like to share information with you this evening. And most of all, we want to hear your comments and your thoughts when we're done with our presentation. So I'd like to start, if you haven't been in this building before, over here by the middle set of double doors, if you turn to the right, down that hallway is the restrooms. So if anybody needs a break, that's where they're located. So I'm Faye Stewart from the Public Works and Development Director for the city. I've been here about 7 years. And I'm going to have a tag team this evening. We have Amber Baylor. She is our chairperson of the ad hoc street funding and improvement committee. So I'll do about half the presentation. She'll do the second half, and then we'll answer questions and take your comments. So just to kind of lay the groundwork a little bit, I don't think anybody in this room would disagree that there's probably some level of maintenance or improvement that needs to be made on almost every street in Cottage Grove. So I hope you're in agreement with that. We've tried, since I've been here for 7 years, to make improvements. We've done some significant ones on St. Brownsville School projects. Down 4th Street, we've repaired bridges, our concrete bridges, Main Street, Silk Creek, and Harrison. We've also rebuilt the swinging bridge. We've done chip seals, some overlays, and we're not making enough improvements to keep up and move ahead of the degradation that's taking place in our system. So, City Council was presented that information and the challenges over the last few years of resources to do the work, and it's a daunting, serious problem in our city that there's really no clear, there's an easy answer. I'm sure the City Council would have stepped up and said, hey, this is what we're going to do. Unfortunately, that wasn't taking place, and we recommended to the City Council to establish an ad hoc committee to learn about the situation with them. All the City Council and Mayor are part of that committee, and try to make a recommendation to the Council of the steps forward to make improvements on our transportation system. I'd like to start with the introductions, or to share with you the folks involved in the committee. And as I said, we have Mayor Soulsby, and we have the city councilors. And then we have the private citizens or citizen members. We have Amber Baylor, we have Garland Burbeck, Jeff Conklin, Chris Hallman, Michael Laporte, Michael Pregature, Robert Reeds, and Tiffany Williams. We had a youth advisory council member, Cassidy Marcel, that was involved too. So our first meeting, I believe, was in May, and we had 8 meetings, and then the committee determined that we needed to get some public input on what we learned and kind of the thoughts that they had to date. And so we've been out on kind of a road show. I believe we've made 8 presentations, a couple on K&D, and then this evening is our town hall forum. Early on in the creation of the committee and the working portion of the committee, they adopted a vision and objective statement for the committee. And the vision is to improve the quality of our city streets through a fair and equitable use of funding means that improves and maintains the city streets to a pavement condition index rating of 72, with a priority on arteries and collectors for the long-term improvement of property values and livability in Cottage Grove. So just to take a second about pavement condition index. We had a company, Mirio, go out and visibly inspect and plug in the condition of every street in Cottage Grove into a program we call Paver. And it rates the roads from 0 to 100. 0 is a complete failed road to 100, which is essentially so trying to achieve a 72 average is kind of the lower portion of the good in street condition index. If you're familiar with driving streets, our streets are right now presently at 55.6 PCI. If you get out in the county area, our county roads are really close to that 70 plus rating. So you can see a difference when you just step outside of our city transportation system. The objective that was adopted is to research and recommend an acceptable source of funding to the community and stakeholders that will supply the funds for the necessary street improvements. The goal is to support a level quality of 70 in the street pavement condition index for the arterial and collector roads. So street ratings, I kind of got ahead of myself. I'm bad at that to start talking. So once again, street ratings, we have all of our streets through an independent third-party contracting engineering firm. They analyze all street conditions and plug them into the paver program and to determine the street pavement condition. And if you don't follow your notes, you don't get the right numbers. Our current PCI is 55.4, which is in the bottom of the fair category, teetering on 4. And once again, the goal is to be 70 or higher. To reach the 72 pavement condition index number, that would require today's dollars a $35 million investment to make that happen. And that would be over 10 years. Over 10 years, we would need to invest $3.5 million a year to achieve that goal. Currently, the City of Cottage Grove, in our budget, after we paid for our operating expenses to operate the street system and the maintenance of that, we have approximately $400,000 of money that we can do maintenance and capital improvements. So what is our street budget?
I'm sorry, Dave, could you go back over those last 2 points that you made? The PCI of 72 and 3.5 million a year.
Okay. So, as I said, the PCI is the pavement condition index. And for our current one is, I believe it's 55.4. And for us to improve the pavement condition index to 72 or better, it would require a total investment of $35 million. And we broke it down to do it over a 10-year period. It would take an investment of $3.5 million a year. So we'll speak a little bit to the budget. So our 2023-24 budget, which we are currently in, our revenue, our projected revenue is $1.473 million, and our expenses is $1.473 million. $400,000 is allocated or held over from the previous budget to be used as match for the Main Street project. And so where does the revenue come from? Our gas tax, the City of Cottage Grove has a standalone gas tax that we collect as 3 cents a gallon, and it was projected to come in at $350,000 for this fiscal year. Last fiscal year, 22-23, the final number that we received was $330,000. When I came here 7 years ago, we were receiving approximately $450,000 a year from the gas tax at 3 cents. So we've seen some pretty significant, over the last 7 years, decline in that revenue. And there's lots of reasons for it. We have more efficient vehicles, we have people driving less, they change their work habits, they're not commuting to work as much because they can work from home. And people, quite frankly, because of COVID and other issues, have changed their traveling habits, so that's just a reduction. Then the city receives what we call our state highway funds. Those funds come from ODOT, the Oregon Department of Transportation. And what happens is the state collects all the funds that are generated and dedicated for street use. They collect it in one pot, and then they allocate it back out to pay for their Department of Transportation services. They share it with the counties and the cities. And so with the city of Cottage Grove's portion is projected to be $850,000 in this fiscal year. And that is allocated out based on per capita, which is we receive approximately $76 per person that lives inside the city limits from the state from that large pool of funds. And then we also receive what we call federal urban aid funding, which is was projected to be $145,000. That's money that comes through from the federal government to the state, and it's allocated out to the various jurisdictions to assist the jurisdictions on federally approved roads in their jurisdiction. So in Cottage Grove, Main Street is a federally qualified road to spend this money on. So 16. We have quite a few roads actually inside the city limits that this money could be utilized on. And last year we carried money over, so if we at the end of the year have money that we haven't spent, it rolls over and gets brought into the next budget and allocated out for operations. And we carried forward a projected $525,000. And once again, that money is, for the Main Street project downtown, we have a $1.25 million match that we have to match the federal funding for that EDA grant. So between what we can carry forward this year and the other resources we have, we've dedicated that funding for the current budget. So where does the money go? Our expenses, our operations were projected to be $707,000 a year for that year. That pays for a little over 4 employees, full-time equivalents. It pays for the operation of the street lights, for striping the streets, for painting the curbs, for working on the signs, filling the potholes, doing crack sealing, just the general operation. And then we also fund the street sweeper. About 75% of the total cost of the street sweeper operation, and $113,000 comes from the street fund. The other 25% is paid for by the storm water fund. And then this year we chip sealed West Main Street from River Road to R, and we also did North River Road from Main Street to Wexman Bridge. And that project was allocated out at $280,000. And then the general support for the general fund was projected at $117,000, and we carried a contingency of $226,000. So in the end, once we've met our obligations for the grant that we're working on for Main Street, we generally have about $400,000 a year to spend towards capital improvements at the present time in any given budget cycle. So now I guess we'll turn it over to Amber and she'll talk about challenges and possible steps forward.
He's not going to go too far because I knew nothing about roads until about 10 months ago. I don't know very much. But I am a citizen just like you guys are, and I wanted to participate in trying to come up with solutions to one of our biggest challenges. I've only been here about a year and a half with my husband and sons, so going on social media occasionally, seeing a lot of complaints about the streets, seemed like that's a pretty big problem that needs some people to step up and help solve. So thankfully, we had the council, and we had some great committee members that have a very wide you guys want to stand up real quick so people know who you are? Can you stand up real quick so people know who's been doing the hard work? Excellent. Thank you. So I don't think any of this is news to anybody, but I do want to share, we understand our challenges with our streets. As we heard from Faye, we have a really big shortfall, and to get to our level of good that we want to be at. We're also assuming that everybody wants to be at good. So if you don't want to get good, then we don't have to come up with as much money. Also, there's a general lack of public awareness, so that's why we've been doing the roadshow for the last few months, trying to get various outlets to communicate what the challenges are and options, and then just get feedback and listen. So I promise you will have a chance to ask questions, and we'll hear you. We have not made our final decision yet in the committee, so this is absolutely mandatory and critical for us to come up with that final recommendation for the council. So I appreciate everyone here being here right now. And I know some of you are starting to fall asleep, so I'll try to keep it interesting. So the other challenge that we have is that we have material and labor costs that continue to climb, and just decrease amount in tax dollars that are available to us to apply to roads. We also have some hurdles that we have to overcome, some bureaucratic hurdles, and in particular, we have constraints with regard to improving streets and any of them that may have ADA implications. So if we happen to go after a street that is not up to ADA standards, then you can pretty much guarantee the cost of that will about double. So you have to be a bit strategic too when you come up with what you fix and how to best maybe pair that with some other projects that are happening at the same time to help maybe reduce the overall cost. The other thing is we unfortunately don't have the ability right now to assess fees on commercial trucks or electric vehicles. We get that question a lot. The committee had that same question and we talked about it at length, and that's just something that's predicted right now by law. I do want to call out, because I didn't hear Faye talk about it yet, so I'm going to kind of maybe push it to him a little bit more, but I know a lot of people are really curious how we got in this situation, and that was one of the first things that I asked is how the heck are the streets so bad? Like, what happened? And my understanding goes back to the 90s. Remember that the life of a street is what, usually 20 years, maybe a little bit more. So if you go back in time, there was a mechanism where the roads actually got fairly decent, consistent funding, and that was from the timber taxes. When timber sales started to dry up, things like the Endangered Species Act and some other things had changed, and then I think it was in 2000 was the act about secure rural schools, that money it reduced, and then it also got shifted and moved elsewhere to manage. And the end result of that is we just got less money for roads. So that's kind of how we got in this situation. I don't know if they have anything to add to that.
That's it.
Or anyone else you want to add to that.
Mismanagement. We didn't have overnight. It's been happening every 22 years. And we have mismanagement of that. And I'm happy to see that doesn't seem to be the case anymore.
Cool, thank you. Yes?
If you don't have the funds, how are they mismanaged?
Okay, well, let's take comments offline at this point.
Yeah. So if we can, let's go ahead and finish the presentation, and everybody will get to say their comments, their concerns, and ask their questions and make their recommendations. But there's a lot of good information, and we really want to get this to everybody.
All right, so what I want to move on to is probably what I've already heard, or what are our options for addressing the challenges, addressing the needs. So we do have options, the first of which is do nothing. And what that means is we can let the streets go to gravel. And there's already some streets that are. So that's always an option. The other one is we can do small incremental increases in street funding. So you can take, let's say the 400,000 from this year's budget, you know, maybe next year it's another 400,000, and just, you know, try to keep up with the streets as they are, maybe slightly increase their condition. I know with the Main Street work, that's gonna likely increase the PCI a little bit, maybe a couple points. So we could just keep doing that. We'll just chip away at it very slowly. Obviously, we won't get the streets too good. Maybe it'll take 50 years to get there, I don't know. But that is an option. The third one is what the committee spent a really long time on and lots of debating about, and that is the suite of funding options. So, you know, we're not married to any certain set of them at this point, so we want feedback, but there are some that seem most viable. And these options, there are some short-term options, there are some middle-term options, and then there are some really long-term options. And some of them require a vote and others don't. So I just kind of want to talk about some of them. The first is the gas tax, which we're going to currently pay, but there is the option of increasing the gas tax. That is something that would require a vote. We also have the option of increasing property taxes, and that might be something that we put forward and renew every 5 years or so as an option. That, my understanding, doesn't require a vote. There's also the option of the payroll tax. That really historically, and more recently, Salem has not been very popular. But that is an option where you can tax the folks that work in Cottage Grove. And there's like 3,200 or so people that potentially would qualify, those who are not minimum wage earners, and that would be a possible option. That one, I think that one would require a vote as well. And then another one, and thanks to Dana for bringing this up, and if he wants to talk about details, he can a little bit, but the LID, so the Local Improvement District, that is something, was it 40s? 50s? The 50s was actually used in Cottage Grove, and like neighborhood by neighborhood decided that they wanted to band together and contribute to the improvement of their own neighborhood roads. So that is something that is an option. If as a neighborhood you guys are like, I'm tired of my road, then come together and you can go to the city and ask, can we have an LID? And there's going to be a mechanism at some point to basically bill it to your property taxes, and it's, I think, based on square footage of your property, I think it gets added to the bill to your property tax, a lien on your property, yeah. And so you pay it back over a period of time.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay. And then another option is a TUF. So that is the Transportation Utility Fund. That's an option that can be, like if for example, we thought it necessary to target the Gateway Street, and we wanted to try to capture some of the people that are using that street that are maybe, you know, the commercial truckers or the tourists. That is another option, and I don't know if you want to explain how that one works. But.
Yeah, so generally a transportation utility fee, in most cases, it's within the entire city boundaries. Crestwell just did it, and they applied a certain fee to residential homes and then their commercial businesses and industrial. And it's all based on trip counts. It's very similar to the way we calculate SDC fees, which is your system development fees when somebody builds something brand new in the city, when we collect that. So essentially, just hypothetically say that we create the transportation utility fee, and it's based on the entire city, and you say $10 fee increase per each house, and maybe it's based on trip counts for businesses. That's an avenue. But I think there was a general consensus and concern by the members of the committee that, you know, our utility fees right now are fairly significant. Adding another fee would be, specifically to everybody, would be a challenge. And so then we researched and found out that we could actually downsize the district and create it so hypothetically maybe the entrance of Gateway where we have coffee shops and restaurants and fast food, various different things, we could create a district and add a fee to that they would most likely pass on to their patrons, and in many cases, those are travelers that are stopping through from I-5 to get a cup of coffee or take a quick break.
Yeah, thank you, Faye. So those are some shorter-term options, so the option 3A. Longer-term options, options 3B. And you'll see a little bit later that these are a bit more popular, just in general from what we've heard from folks. But this is finding creative ways to capture additional funding and from external sources. The most popular one so far that has come up is the TID, which is the Transportation Improvement District. This is a longer-term option because it could take 2 to 3 years to get implemented. The ones I talked about earlier are shorter. You could potentially see something on the ballot in November and have it effective in January. But the other ones take a bit more time. Basically, you have to, I believe, have somebody represent a bill at the legislature in Oregon to have a new district, and the district would likely follow the boundaries of the Southland School District. So it would capture about maybe 35,000 or so people. Right now, the options that we've been proposing for the short term, those really are just focused in Cottage Grove, and then whoever might be coming through externally paying gas taxes. But this 3B could potentially longer term capture a lot more of the other users of our streets and maybe be a little bit more equitable. So that would require a bill. It then would require approval by the county, and then it would require going to a vote, and then we'd have to settle on what mechanism is actually going to be used to get that money. One option is the flat fee, where let's just say $12 per vehicle per vehicle in that boundary would get charged at registration time when they register their cars. And so if you assume there's 35,000 people, $12 per vehicle, maybe average person has 2 vehicles, it comes out to just under about $1 million that could be generated with that approach. And that would basically offset one of the other shorter term options. There are other things like pursuing more of a relationship with the LTD, and I know that work has already started, and seeing if maybe they could chip in. There's also the continued, trying to get more grants, which I know the city is always, has shovel-ready projects ready when those come up, and also often looking out for those proactively, and that's how we got the Main Street grant. Other options are the custom license plates, so that was fairly popular. The only thing is you have to pay for that up front and then hope that your design is liked enough that it will pay for itself. The other thing is traffic control, photo traffic control. That was discussed quite a bit, but with that one it takes a bit more overhead and not quite sure how much that would actually generate, but it was discussed. And then a road use fee. So in whole, those are kind of the short-term, mid-term, longer-term options. The other option, option 4, is taking 3A, 3B and extending it out past 10 years and say, let's just do it over 15 or 20 years. And I keep in mind, because this was asked on the Bieber show, but the $35 million doesn't include inflation. So, the more you extend it out, the more expensive it may get if prices continue to go up. So those are our options at this point. I'll move on to the next slide, which is next steps. So with the next steps, based on feedback here, based on all the feedback that we gathered through the road shows, we're going to put it together as a committee and put together the recommendation and come up with a timeline and then present it to the council. If the council goes with our recommendation, then we proceed to next steps, which could be something on the ballot in November, depending on what the decision is. In the meantime, there will be continued investigation of state and legislative options with council direction, and I believe Faye, you and Candace have already started those conversations with some reps about like the TID, and there have been conversations they mentioned with LTD. And then continue with the Citizen Street Funding Oversight Committee. So if there is something recommended, we want there to be oversight by citizens. So there is that accountability part, especially if there's going to be a tax increase, let's just say on property. There needs to be like an annual report. It needs to be reviewed with the council. We need to understand what was done, what wasn't done, and then it should go up for renewal. And if things are not working out, then it's not going to be renewed. So there needs to be that constant accountability and oversight for this to be successful and whatever the recommendation is. And then, let's see, now we're on to, okay, so this is just the budget comparison with 10-year funding suite recommendations. Basically with this, like the 1.8 million for arterial and collector road improvements, that would mostly probably be accomplished where we were thinking maybe with a TUF or DSD, gas tax, maybe the property or payroll tax, and then the 1.5 would be a combination of some of those other sources, plus most heavily on the LID. So this would be up to the citizens if they would want to fund the road improvements. And we tossed around the idea of maybe the city could chip in a little bit just to encourage that. I think that's the gist of this one. And then this is a recap. So far what we've done is we've had outreach on Facebook, a couple beeper shows. There's been about 3 newspaper articles with the Sentinel and I think 1 or 2 with the Chronicle. Advertisements we've presented to these organizations, primarily Faye, and kudos to Shauna for all of her support as well. And thank you, Faye, for presenting all of these. And then I'm sure there's been lots of conversations around town with the other committee members. So here's an interesting slide. So Shauna, again, put some questionnaire together, passes them out, collects them, and then tallies them all up. So this is the result of the feedback so far. Yes, thank you, Dana. That is on your table. So we welcome you guys to fill those out also and drop them off. But so far what we've gathered is the highest approval of the funding options that we've recommended or been talking about is the TID. So that is that longer term option that has a legislative requirement. The next one that's more popular is preservation and small improvements. So kind of like what we're doing right now, maybe with getting a few more grants here and there. That was fairly popular. The next one is the gas tax increase. That one's more on the agreeable side than not. And with that, so to really have it be helpful, it really need to be more of a 6-cent increase. So basically, if we upped it by 6 cents more, it would give us about $650K more a year. And Faye can definitely talk to you about how much just one street project would be, because one major project can completely wipe out the $660K. And then the next one, this is kind of like on the fence now, but LID was at 50% approval of that idea, custom license plate 49, road use tax, and then you can see payroll tax and property tax, not surprising, are not very popular. And for those to be getting us to that 3.5 million a year that we need, we're looking at needing like a 1% employee tax and needing about 81 cents on $1,000 value to be able to collectively have enough to meet that 3.5 million every year. So it's a sizable amount. And then overall, it seems like folks have been satisfied with the information, but we can always do better. And then some other feedback that we received are, can we tax beer and liquor? The answer is no. Taxes from marijuana. Basically, out of all the marijuana tax collection, 10% of it goes to cities, so a very, very small amount. Most of it goes to like mental health and police and schools. And then another idea was like toll or road use fee for commercial vehicles. As mentioned, we're not able to specifically target commercial vehicles per law. Maybe pursuing more grants, that was another idea, which I know the city actively does. Collaborate with other cities. We're not the only city that has this challenge, so that makes a lot of sense. Could sell mural or art installations, do fundraisers with investors. We do know there is a capital organization that offers revenue for something like a street improvement, but that requires taking up an upfront loan and then repaying it. So that could be quite risky if you don't know where you're going to be getting your revenue sources. And then another idea has been business tax, and then a general feedback is where are all of our taxes going right now? And so that one has come up quite a bit. So if you guys have any questions pertaining to that, feel free to ask them tonight. And we're at the point in the program where we'd like to hear from you and fill out the comment cards and feel free to ask questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you for that question. So I think everybody was able to hear it. So the various different options and what they would raise. So right now we shared the 3 cents per gallon is generating this last year $330,000. So if we added 3 or 6 cents, you just multiply that by 2 or 3 times to see what it would increase. The property tax, we looked at 81 cents per thousand, and that would generate just about $900,000 a year. And that's a pretty substantial increase for folks on their property tax, 81 cents. The payroll tax, so the employee paid payroll tax, 1% right now would generate approximately $1.5 million a year. And that's just paid for the people that have jobs inside the city limits of Cottage Grove. If you work elsewhere, it wouldn't apply to you. There was really no numbers that we could quantify in regards to the license plate. We also looked at limited improvement districts. How you create what the limited improvement district cost would be is based on what it costs. Hypothetically, let's say we wanted to rebuild Anthony between M Street and R Street. So what we would do is we would hire our engineer to analyze that, design what the upgrades would be. We would go out to bid. We'd find out what the total price would be, and then it would be allocated based on the frontage footage per property owner, and then it would be paid over hypothetically a 20-year period based on what their share of the payment would be. So it's really hard to tell you what that's going to cost, but that's the mechanism on how that works. And there was some limited conversation about a transportation service district, and Amber did a great job on that. If, and I don't have any quantified numbers, I could go to the DMV and find out how many registered vehicles are within the school district boundary through a Freedom of Information request. But just off the cuff, I figured that, probably everybody in Cottage Grove each household has 1.5 vehicles. And if you figured that each household would pay approximately $18 a year for those vehicles into this district, it could generate realistically close to $1 million a year. So those are kind of the mechanisms. Yes? If you could, we got the mic here, and we're recording this so that other folks can view it in the future, and it might be easier for people to hear. So this mic where I was standing up here would be, please. We're all friends here, so.
I have 2 questions. And it's because I really want to be educated about the process, and I really want to know. The first question I have about is the expenses. I was just kind of confused on, I guess, the operations, like 700,000 for 4 people. And then also, what is the, sorry about that. If somebody can clarify what is general support and the contingency and the miscellaneous. I'm just trying to get a general idea on the expenses, because I guess I feel like, you know, there was a gas tax, and I'm trying to figure out, like, was that gas tax just for those potholes, or was everything thrown into it? That's what I'm kind of trying to understand. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll do my best. I don't have my budget document, and I'll try to remember what I shared with Councilor Merriday this morning. But essentially, the operations pays for, like I said, the employees, and that's their full loaded costs. There's 4.6. Yeah, if you don't mind, I can read it from the book here. Thank you, Councilor. So as I go down, you know, anybody can look at the city budget. It's on the city website, cottagegrove.org, and if you click on the budget, you can access it, and you can go through these various different revenue funds. And you would want to click on, this one is in Enterprise Zone, or Enterprise Fund, excuse me. And, you know, as we said, four full-time employees end up costing it's budgeted at $462,000 a year. Essentially, the people that pays for, it pays for 10% of my salary, it pays for a 0.7% of an administrative aide, it pays for our utility supervisor, 0.22% of his salary, 0.22% of the fleet and facilities manager, and then you end up paying full bore on 3 maintenance workers. We also pay a 0.25% to the, we have summer hires. We hire 8 youth, and they work for us over the summer, and we contribute to their pay. Then if you roll down into the materials and service portion of that, it equates to almost $245,000. And so we have contractual services. It costs us $17,000 a year to pay Lane County to stripe our streets. We also bring in contractors to fill, dig up portions of the street, to make repairs where the street's failing. And then we just run some additional funds if we happen to have some sort of unforeseen portion that we need to bring in an outside contractor. A lot of times we don't spend this entire amount, but as I said earlier, when we get done at the end of the year, that rolls forward and it's our starting carry forward budget number. I don't know, one of our big expenses is we pay Pacific Power and EPUD approximately $80,000 a year for the street lights, electricity, and the operation of the street lights. We also have, out of this fund for our city maintenance shop, electricity allocated at $20,000 for that facility. And then we have mobile devices, we have natural gas, fuel and lubricants to operate our equipment is budgeted at $20,000. We have a small building maintenance for the shop of $1,500. Equipment maintenance, because they do get used, is budgeted at $8,000 a year for equipment, and vehicle maintenance for the trucks is at $5,000. Another big ticket item is we contract with ODOT to provide the maintenance of our traffic signals, and we allocate at $15,000 a year for that. And then street maintenance to purchase crack sealing product or paint or new signs. We budgeted $20,000 for that. So in the end, like I said, we have about $245,000 budgeted. We probably spend closer to 180. It just depends on what we have to deal with throughout the year. Really, the fixed and probably the costs that generally hit the mark are employee costs, unless we end up having a position that hasn't been filled that might have some carry forward from not filling that position for a period of time.
So the question about the gas tax and where that goes, is that just general fund?
Okay, so yeah, essentially the gas tax is just used, it's just rolled into this. It pays for the operations of the street sweeper, and the capital projects. So it's allocated. I can't tell you that the entire $330,000 goes to filling potholes and stuff. It's just the entire fund. Yeah, so you want to come forward, Pam? I got to watch out for her. She had some good questions at a previous meeting.
So, can you hear me? I have two questions also. First off, you guys are talking about a suite of options. Now, you have 10 options listed. So when you say a suite of options, are you guys considering like 3 out of the 10? Or, you know, what are you kind of looking at? Because you're not going to use all 10 options, are you?
No.
I mean, what are you basically looking at? The top 3 that would work?
Actually, that's part of communicating and getting your feedback. So right now, the committee, I believe, and I'm speaking for them, what I've heard is that they don't think that there's one silver bullet.
Right.
We're not going to generate $3.5 million from one fund or one option. So if the committee is going to make a recommendation to get to that, what's it going to look like? Is it going to be a gas tax increase? Is it going to be a property tax? Is it going to be an income tax? Is it going to be creating a transportation service district? Is it going to be license plates? You know, it would, when they say suite, they're talking about what looks like
Right.
the citizens are supporting and at what level.
And you would only maybe consider just the top ones then? I mean, because the gas tax is going to require a vote, correct?
That's correct.
So if you want that, but yet it won't get voted in, then you've got to go to something else, correct?
That would, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So we know we take the risk if we offer a suite and some of them require a vote and some don't. We take that risk
Right.
that not all of them are to be approved. I think what we were envisioning is we would kind of offer it as a bundle.
Yeah.
You know, we need feedback first before we can actually say what for sure we're going to propose. But yeah, that is a risk, and that's why we really want to get good input on
Right.
what people are likely going to accept. So if we go through the effort of trying to get it on the ballot, there's a good chance that it's going to happen, because it will take probably
Right.
take more than 3.
Right.
It's going to take 3, 4, 5, 6 options.
Okay. Well, my personal opinion is keep it simple, because the more options you have, the more complicated the process gets, and that upsets people. My second question is, did you guys run some actual numbers on option 4 as far as extending the timeout from a 10-year to, say, 15? I'm not in favor of 20. I don't think that's a good option. But did you guys actually run some numbers to reduce the increases, like, say, over 15 years with a reasonable inflation factor in there? Did you guys actually do that? Committee?
I believe we ran some numbers, but I don't think we actually baked in inflation. Anyone remember if we did at any point?
Because it's a valid option,
Yep.
because people always like to hear reduce, reduce. And if it's, if it's not significant to do it, extend it 5 years, well, okay, but we need to know that. And that's an information thing. But if people can see the numbers and see that it's, okay, this might make a difference to me, they may consider that as an option to extend it out just another 5 years with an inflation factor, because those of us that are old enough know that inflation is like this. 10 years from now, the inflation is not going to be what it is today, so, because it goes up and down. So that's just my comment, but I would like to see some actual figures on option 4 for a 15-year. just to reduce some increases.
Thank you.
That's my input.
Another?
This is related not directly to the money things that are going on, but I'm kind of curious in terms of scale. The scale, the number of people in the city, the number of roads, the square feet of the roads. How does that compare? Because I can imagine like Crestwall is not as big as us. But then again, New York City is a little bit bigger than us. And certainly Springfield is bigger than us. So it seems like the population and then the amount of roads and the number of cars that use it in the local community really is an important factor in terms of scaling. And I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So there's approximately 45 miles of paved street and another 6 miles of gravel road within the transportation system of the city. We have approximately a total number of employees. It's anywhere from about 90 to 100, depending on where we're at. So we're about 100 employees if we were fully staffed for the city. We have a population of 11,000 people. Our general fund budget, our total general fund budget is around $51 million, was adopted this last year. Property tax revenue that is generated just based on property tax paid in is about $5.7 million. So, you know, I haven't really spent a lot of time checking out what other people's budgets are, but you are correct. I mean, Springfield's probably 50, 60,000 people. City of Eugene's 175,000 people. You know, generally Eugene's public work budget is 10 times what the city of Cottage Grove's is if we were comparing apples to apples. And the number of employees is about 10 times too. So I wish, you know, I don't know if there's a magic formula, but that's just kind of an idea. There was a question in regards to internal costs, and I didn't, general support. That includes what our street fund contributes to the insurance policy that we carry. It covers our debt service. It also covers our administration costs. A certain portion goes to help fund the city manager's budget and various other items. So that internal number is based on those factors. It also has an audit. Each year we do an audit, so the portion of the audit cost comes into that fund too. Yeah, please.
My name's John, and your gravel roads is a really bad idea. I ride a Harley Davidson, and it's really nice keeping it on both wheels, because when you crash, it hurts. It's painful. I'm lucky to still be here, because I've had 2 accidents, but gravel roads are not good for inexperienced riders, and there are people they just get their endorsements and they go out there, gravel road, hit a rock, fall over. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and one other thing, I live on West Harrison Avenue, which has had school buses all day going on. Right on the corner of Harrison Court, there is no wheelchair ramp. There's no way for any kid that's in a wheelchair to get off that or to get on that sidewalk.
Yeah.
That to be fixed if possible.
Thank you. Yeah. That is one of, you know, the perfect example of when we do an upgrade on a road, if we do anything more than a maintenance preservation application like a slurry seal or a chip seal, we're mandated to bring those facilities up to 8AA compliance. And as Amber said earlier, that could increase the cost and generally increase the cost of the project by almost 100%. It almost doubles the cost. But when we do, West Harrison is not in very good shape, as you stated. That's going to take, there's not going to be a maintenance preservation on that. That's going to take a repave, and then we will be forced by federal law to bring that up to standards. We're also, because that is located fairly close to an elementary school, we're looking at putting together another Safe Routes to Schools project and apply for grant funding with the state. Probably most likely will be the Bohemia Elementary School area because it has the more areas that need to be brought up to ADA standards. So we'll make that application as soon as our bike and pedestrian plan's completed. Butch?
You asked how we got here, the streets. Well, I don't know. I bought my first house here in town when I was... I bought my first house in town in '65, so I've been here a while. 16th Street, when they did the treatment plant and the water thing, they hauled all that material out over 16th Street. Overloaded, the trucks were overloaded. I don't know if anybody checks weights around here when they do a project, but, and that was the demise of 16th Street. Our street, when they built the school, them trucks come in there, concrete truck, it's hard to make a 90-degree corner with a lift axle. So they raise the lift axle, down they go overloaded all the way down there. It's a little late after the fact. And so, you know, when they have a project like the new high school, they worked out great because they put a new street in when they were done. And I don't know, this questionnaire, the last one of these I filled out here was for city manager. Overwhelmingly, we voted for Fay. The council give us somebody else. So I'm not going to fill out anything else for the city because it don't matter. Evidently, our opinion doesn't matter. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Butch made some really good points.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Butch just shared his 60 years of experience living in Cottage Grove and what he's witnessed, and some of the reasons why the streets have fell apart. A lot of it has to do with construction projects that facilitate large, heavy construction vehicles that are hard on the roads. 16th Street, as he shared, was a lot of heavy trucks went down there to facilitate the construction of the wastewater treatment plant, or if it was a new school project. A lot of times those trucks cause extra degradation to the roads. I would also share that what I've found since I've been here is a lot of the roads were not built to today's standards. We have roads in this community that were paved, and they were paved without any base. They're paved right on top of the clay. Bryant Street, others are a perfect example of that. And then if you want your pavement street to last, you need to do maintenance. And unfortunately, the resources weren't available to do the maintenance. When I was at the county, if you were able to chip seal a road and a lot of it has to do with the amount of use of the road, if you're able to chip seal it, every 7 to 10 years, you're preserving and rebuilding that surface so that the street and the base will last. A lot of times, if you're able to do slurry seals and those things, you don't have huge failures unless you have unexpected heavy equipment on those roads. Dwayne?
Thank you to everybody for coming in tonight. I thought I'd see more people. Faye, I don't want to beat up on what's been done, but you mentioned roads being built back in the past. So when you look at R and Carnegie, there's no traffic on those roads they're roads to nowhere. They're 2 roads to dead ends. What happened there? Because if you drive out there where they're putting all the wood chips, that's crumbling. Is that because of the wetland, or? Yeah.
That's a good question, Dwayne. I'm not 100% sure because, like you said, it hasn't been used. It's just,
right.
it's been a portion of the street that was built and been sitting for ever since it was established.
Right, and I wasn't gonna ask that question, but since you mentioned back in the day paving right over Clay, I thought, that's just recent. That's within the last
And-
10 years, and it's fallen apart with no trucks driving on it.
It could be. So as the ground moves, as Dwayne has said, as the ground moves, then the movement causes cracks, and the cracks then allow water to go into the street, and that impacts the base, and it leads to failure. That's why it's important to do the maintenance, important to do the crack sealing, important to do slurry sealing, so that we keep the water from it being introduced into the base, which ultimately causes failures and very expensive to repair.
I think we've seen a lot of damages since the recent ice storm. I think the roads have gotten worse since the thaw.
Yeah.
I think they have.
No,
I've been paying
they
more
have,
attention.
they have. You know, the material has fell down on the roads. The other thing that happens is when you have cracks and you have freezing, it was frozen during that period of time. It causes I think I learned this back in school, that as water freezes, it expands, which causes the pavement to crumble, and it causes the degradation to increase. So if we can, like I said, stop that introduction of the water into those areas, we can hopefully preserve our roads.
So back to why we're here. So I think that the people need a commitment from the city that any funds raised would be spent only for repairing the roads. Not for, and I know we talked about ADA, when you get into a road where it's not ADA compliant, now you have to do the ADA stuff. You can't just do the road. I'm not versed in the law, but I'm assuming you can't just do the road from the asphalt to asphalt. You have to do everything, right?
Yeah, and even if you just did the travel lanes and you didn't do the entire road, you're mandated to do the ADA improvements.
So what if you came in and dug out just the travel lane, like the average width of a vehicle? Could you just do that strip?
No.
There's no way around that.
No.
So we would need, for the committee, we would need a commitment. I think the voters, the ratepayers, the taxpayers would need a commitment from the council who runs the city that the money would only be spent on fixing current infrastructure, not building new. To see that 10 years ago or 5 years ago, the estimate to continue South R from Sweet to Carnegie was over $1 million. And I think some of that was mitigating the wetlands, but that's a lot of money. I've heard numbers like $1 million a mile. I was trying to look up, it was like in Oregon, it's 3.5 cents per square foot for asphalt is the most current number I could get. So it's not just linear foot, but then whatever the width of your road is. So if we could get that commitment, I think we could see some support. No new roads until we fix the roads we got. And that would build the trust. So then repairs that we could see on top layer. I was living on R Street when we did R Street, and that we dug way down deep and raised pipes, put in gravel. I mean, that street was rated A+ while I was living there, and I was lucky enough to see it and experience it and witness how it's done, how much energy and how much labor and how much materials put in there. It's expensive. An idea is social media, including us with things like this here, and social media, as much as this city's been against social media in the past, it is really the place to energize people and communicate with people. An idea I think we talked about a couple years ago was like a thermometer. You could have a thermometer that would show how much money on the city's website, how much money we've collected. Let's say we just do a gas tax, real simple. Keep it simple, like the speaker said earlier. And we can show people how much we've raised as we raise it, as we collect it, and as it's paid to us, and then how much we're spending. So people can, the simple people like us, can see how much we've taken in and how much it really costs to fix a pothole. It's not just $100, what it really costs. And then I wanted to ask about a food and beverage tax like Ashland does. Ashland, my first experience there was I bought a cup of coffee for 99 cents and the guy charged me $1.05, and I was pissed because I wasn't in California yet. And he explained to me that they have a food and beverage tax, and one of the few cities that does that. And their idea was that they capture the people from off the interstate who are using their resources, their roads, their emergency, and they're able to just tax those people. And that's a tax, you know, if you can't afford it, then you just don't get it. You don't need it to survive. And then that's all I got for now.
All right, thank you.
And then the gas tax, if you do the research, you'll find that Portland is a dime a gallon, and that's what I've heard proposed here, is to raise our gas tax to 10 cents. But we've got to keep in mind, one of the speakers up here asked earlier if you guys had some hard numbers on what could be raised. Even if you brought this up to 10 cents, you're limited on what you can collect from electric cars and trucks. And cars are becoming more efficient day by day. Cheap cars, Toyota Corolla, $23,000. It's not cheap. It's cheap for new cars today. 50 miles per gallon. It has a battery pack. It's heavier. It's gonna pay less. And then we've got an influx of people moving here from Eugene with the new apartments. They're working in Eugene. I just bought gas in Eugene for $2.99 a gallon yesterday. It's $3.15. I think it was $3.15 today when I drove by the gas station. So people have options if you are gonna do that, if you can even get it voted in. But to do that, you're gonna have to use social media and build the support of the people. And that's the simplest.
Yeah, thank you. So I think I would just like to share one of the recommendations that I believe that the committee is most likely going to include is that accountability portion. The City of Eugene, the City of Springfield, Lane County, on their various different funding mechanisms that have been voted in, they have an advisory committee that basically each year reviews what projects were done, what the costs were, and make sure, and they send out a report to the citizens that says, yes, every dime that was raised from the additional road fund is being spent in these areas, and it's kind of that check-in and accountability that they can report to the citizens. So I think that's going to be a very important component to whatever is presented to the public to vote for. Yes, essentially, Councilor Meriday, is that each year those entities actually do give reports. The county gives a report that you might see that talks about the number of jail beds they funded and the resources that the jail bed levy does. The City of Eugene, Springfield gives yearly reports out. I would like to see it more than once every 5 years, but there needs to be an accountability portion that's sent to the citizens.
I just wanted to say that there's a patch of potholes in front of our driveway, and I've fallen a lot of times on my skateboard and my scooter because the potholes are so big and the little wheels roll into the holes and they get stuck, and when you're riding it makes it bumpy and hard to ride on bikes and scooters and skateboards. And I just wanted to say that I would like that to be fixed because me and my brother and sisters ride a lot and we've fallen on that part, and I think it should be fixed.
Thank you for that comment. I appreciate that, and I would share with everybody in here that on the cottagegrove.org website, there is what we call a pothole spotter tab that you could go to, and you could say, hey, I live at this address, there's a pothole here, a pothole there, and then we take those comments and we really try hard to fill the potholes and do what we can. There are some comments on the pothole spotter that the entire road of 16th Street needs to be rebuilt. I mean, we realistically can't fix 16th Street through the pothole spotter, but we do try to hit those ones that I think could be fixed, at least short term, to help you from having those accidents.
First of all, I'd like to talk about the street sweeping. It's a big number in the budget, and I understand from the previous administration that it has a schedule. I haven't seen a street sweeper in 2 months on my side of town. I don't know where he's at or what he's doing, if he's been broke down or crashed into or whatever.
Yeah, if I can answer that real quick. So the street sweeper doesn't have a set schedule. He has a routine schedule that he does. So it's not like every Tuesday he's going to be in this location or that location. We have generally the same person driving the street sweeper, and as he can, he just continues his route. Unfortunately, all of our employees have been tasked cleaning up wood debris the last month and a half, and it's been very difficult to get out with the street sweeper. That same individual is actually our city arborist, and he is overseeing 13 working crews at the present time as we're cleaning up and trimming trees. So we'll get to it, and if you're welcome to email me and give me the street that you're on, and we'll do our best when we have somebody to run it.
Well, I can understand when the brush was piled up along the street and before the city got it all cleaned up, it was futile for him to be trying to do any cleaning because everything was blocked. I understood that. But prior to that, there was no blockage or anything, and there's no blockage now. It's been 2 weeks since your people have cleaned up our area, and we still see nothing. So anyway, that's a consideration that you should look into. I was told by the previous administration, the city manager, that they had a schedule. Now, whatever that's worth. And the other thing is potholes. I don't really see too much happening in the area of potholes. You've got potholes right here on Main Street. You've got a big one where Sweet meets 99, and I don't think the pothole's in 99. It's in the city. It's before it meets the road. It's been there now for 6 months, and it's this deep. For instance, that's 2 locations, just an example. I don't think that anybody's getting out there and looking and taking care of what needs to be taken care of as a danger to the vehicles, the maintenance, and so on and so forth. I would appreciate it if somebody would take a look at that. And I know this is cold and whatnot, but cold mix will work temporarily, But anyway, that's what I got to say about that. And the other issues you mentioned a while ago about this construction and the heavy traffic and all that, the larger cities, when they permit these construction projects, before they give a permit, they designate routes that the construction vehicles are going to take, and they take into consideration what damage they're going to do. They analyze the road before, they analyze the road after, and the agreement with who the general contractor or the builder or the bank or whoever, they are going to bring it back to the standards that it was prior to. Right now, according to what you said earlier, they build and they're gone. You're stuck with the city, the pedestrians, and all the people to fix that. They tore it up, we didn't. We're letting them get off scot-free. Another thing, my final thing, is that I've not heard anything about us bringing in our local congressmen, the senators, much less bringing in our federal people. There is money in Washington that is just sitting around there doing nothing. If we had our local people working on it, and whoever them people are in Washington, going to Washington for the state of Oregon, and this district or the whole state in general should be grabbing that Build Back Better money. It's just laying there, doing nothing. We should be a part of that. We've got $35 million, according to what this paper says. Why aren't those people involved fully? I've not heard a word about bringing in the state government or the federal. I think that's the area that needs to be looked into. I think what the committee has done so far with the cooperation of the council and all, it's a good start. I'm happy with that, but I think that we're here because there's more to do, and I think we would make big inroads if we would bring in the state people that represents all these people here and whomever in the state of Oregon. But also, those people who go into Washington, they don't go there just to sit around and do nothing. They go there supposedly to represent us, in the city and so on and so forth. So we should be after them, give them a tour, They're all the time going somewhere and doing something in the States. You see it in the paper and on the news and everything else. They should be right here looking at what Cottage Grove is dealing with. And I don't think it's the people or the city's problem totally, but it's a problem that we've got to get outside help to fix. We're not making any headway here. The longer you extend this to 10 or 15, past 10 to 15 or 20 years, you're going to just add more deterioration. It's going to cost more. That $35 million will probably be $50 million. So we got to be careful how we attack this, or we're just digging ourselves a deeper hole, and we're never going to get out of it. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate those comments, and I would like to touch on the Build Back Better funding. The city has received 2 large grants, one $5 million to rebuild Main Street from Highway 99 to the Coast Fork River, and that project will hopefully get started this fall, early winter, which will reconstruct everything from building front to building front in that section. It's a $6.25 million project. The second project that's hopefully going to get kicked off and go to bid this next month is a $1.7 million improvement for Bohemia Park. Both of those projects are substantial, and our congressional leaders helped us get those grants. I wish I had off the top of my head, but I would say that I know for a fact there was no cities in the United States that received 2 awards, and where City of Cottage Grove did, and we received a substantial amount. So we also received one of the very first state funds, which comes from federal government, for the Safe Routes to Schools project that improved the sidewalks and ADA all the way from Harrison and River Road across Highway 99 down 4th Street to Grant. That was a $1.2 million grant from the state of Oregon through federal funds. We are continually looking for opportunities that we can apply for. This past year, I applied for some trail funds that we weren't successful in. We analyzed, we had a budget member that pointed out a few opportunities. As we looked at those opportunities closer, we didn't meet the criteria, but I appreciate everybody's inputs and opportunities to point out something that maybe we've missed. Debbie?
I don't live in the city limits of Cottage Grove, but I really encourage people to vote to extend the boundary of those that pay for the roads in Cottage Grove. I make several trips, sometimes a day, on those roads, and I feel like I should be paying my fair share, and I'll pay more gas tax too. But I just encourage you to really think, we need to really push to get the funding to improve our road system. Thank you. And I want to thank the ad hoc committee and your team for all of the hard work on this.
Yeah, thank you. So I would like to share that because I too live outside the city limits, and the only true consideration that I give to the city for my use of the streets is the gas tax. I drive an F-150 pickup. I fill it up twice a month. Each time I fill it up, I contribute approximately 90 cents to the city's street fund. So each month, I contribute almost $2. You multiply that by 12, that's $24. I will tell you, $24 doesn't even fill a pothole by the time we pick up the Easy Street product and we deploy a team to go out there and do it. So I appreciate the comments about trying to figure out how to actually get people that use the city streets to contribute to it. I'm the first one that says, hey, you know, what mechanism is that we can incorporate that will take this burden from the 11,000 people and share it with approximately 35,000 people that actually use the roads. I probably spend 50% of my miles that are driven on my pickup are inside the city of Cottage Grove. And so we need to find a mechanism, I personally believe, that helps me contribute, whether it's an employee tax, whether it's higher gas tax, whether it's a transportation utility district, whatever it is, I hope we can make that recommendation to the council and see where they take it.
Just for the record, I usually buy gas in Cottage Grove. Somebody gave me grief for buying gas in Eugene, but I had to buy it at $2.99. I needed the receipt to prove I got it for $3. So in the last budget, so Faye and council and ad hoc committee, I think we got to keep it simple. I didn't read the questions before I came up here. I support a gas tax. I will support a gas tax with a commitment from the committee and the council that it will be spent only on fixing current roads. My wife's a bus driver in this town, and so she drives all these streets, including Douglas. And you can't imagine what that does to a person who drives a bus, what it does to their body over 20 years. Just like the kids over here with the scooters, how dangerous that could be. So I support a gas tax right now with that commitment. I'd like to think that we could have the highest gas tax in the state and grab those people off I-5 and they could pay it. I mean, when you're buying gas for $3.99 a gallon at Chevron, $1 more than I paid yesterday, they can eat some of that cost, in my opinion. I'm not so sure I support the road use fee, the cameras, whatever that was about. I don't think I can support a property tax increase, and I don't live in the city. You know, I don't live here anymore in the city. And there was some talks about a district that would be the school district boundary. We'd have to talk, but I think doing it now and letting the people see. So I wanted to ask you a question here. When they came in and did the study last year, they said that just to maintain what we had at the 54.1% PCI, that it would cost $1.5 million a year just to maintain that. If we didn't spend, this is what they said, if we didn't spend the $1.5 million a year, the PCI would continue to go down. Is that true?
I believe that's what the report said, yeah. And I want to preface that's what we would contract with services that come in. So one of the ways that I've been able to stretch our city dollars is we have an incredible workforce. So as each year, the last few years, we've been able to deploy in the summer months when we have summer hires, we've been able to put together a crack sealing team. Right. So take, for instance, if I was, 2 years ago, we crack sealed approximately 250 lineal feet of cracks is what we projected. It cost us about $50,000 to do that. That included the wages, that included buying the product and renting the crack sealer. Now, if I went and got bids for that same work, the average bid was anywhere from 95 cents to $1 a lineal feet is what they would charge. So we got 250 lineal feet done for $50,000. If I would have paid a contractor $1 a lineal foot, we would have spent $250. So wherever we can, I am trying really hard to stretch our dollars and to get as much work done as we can. It's just like North River Road. This past year, we chip sealed North River Road. We used a fairly new technique. It's a scrub seal, so they apply the liquid in the gravel and it fills the holes, the void's a little better, it's thicker. And we took that road from approximately a 40 PCI, and when they came in and judged it or graded it this summer after the chip seal, it was at 95. That portion of the road cost us about $150,000 to do that. If we were to pave that portion, repave it, it would have cost us close to $1.2 million.
Right, and so that goes back to this, number one, continue preservation and small improvements. Those
Right.
are things that people can see. So, and as far as putting it out 20 years, I think we have to be honest with ourselves. When I was on the budget committee, I think the budget was around $40 million, and now it's 50. Is it 50?
Yeah, it was approximately 51 this year.
$50 million. So let's just say it was still 35 million. We're putting 1/10 of the city's budget on the backs of the people that live within the city, just to fix the roads. I mean, that's what it amounts to. I'm not good at math, but that's what it comes out to. And I just don't think it's attainable. And I think you're going to have a hard time just getting the 1.5 just to keep the roads at the 54%. So I think we got to start out small, start out And then one of the speakers up here was talking about the people in Salem and the people, our state and our county, our state and our federal representatives. The ad hoc committee people have spent a lot of time, volunteer time, working on this, and it wouldn't be a bad idea to get a group of people together to go sit at the county, state, or even the federal level and advocate for some of that money. To see $145,000 coming in that aid package from the feds, it doesn't seem, there should be another zero on that.
Yeah.
So, and anyway, so that's, and then time frame, I think we got to be honest with ourselves. It's never going to be done. It's never going to be done. I don't think that it'll ever be up in the 90s. Can we attain 70? Maybe. So that's just an idea. We just got to start small and prove it to the people that we can do it, and then from there we can build on it.
I appreciate that. So I would like to say that, you know, it is really important to communicate to our elected officials, and when we have the opportunity. I want to share that the last couple weeks I've had the opportunity twice to present information to our Congresswoman Hoyle. She has made a point to come into our city. She met with our mayor and our new city manager and myself, and we discussed where we were at with this storm debris and the costs. I was able to present to her again this past week. She is approachable, and she understands the plight. I shared with her that we're probably going to spend $2.3 million cleaning up this mess and restoring our city, and we really need assistance from the federal government because we're spending reserves that were allocated and intended to be spent on improvement projects, capital improvement projects, and if we don't get reimbursement, that's going to just push those projects out. So I appreciate the comments of trying to communicate, and it's just vitally important that you use your voice, take the time, write a letter, and try to share the concerns and the need for assistance. So I just was told by the time check that it's after 8. I am willing to hang around and answer another question or two. And did you have? Yeah, come on up, and then we'll look to closing.
I just had one. It might not be popular, but I noticed that you mentioned that Main Street improvement project that we had to match funds on a grant. I'm ignorant. I didn't realize that grant money is not free. You have to match. And I was already thinking it's kind of a waste of money. You just redid Main Street and it's fine. You know, we did chip seal, and they're going to spend a huge, evidently more than $5 million to fix something that's not broke. And I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and not a single person thought it was a good idea to do it. It's just going to take away from the character of the town. And now I'm hearing we're going to actually have to spend our money on top of it to do this, something that we don't even need or want. Mm-hmm. Is there any way to change that decision?
Well, I suppose we could tell the federal government that we don't want their money. That's going to be a real challenge because we've spent quite a bit right now in surveying and construction design and plans. When the criteria came out to apply for grants for the Build Back Better, we fit the criteria with this project. This project has been designed 15 plus years ago, and it was the, Counselor, do you have it off the top of your head, the revitalization plan for Main Street. And if you've spent any time walking down Main Street, you can tell that the trees have caused the sidewalk to buckle. If you try to park in my wife's car, I try to park on Main Street, I can't get out next to the curb because the door slams into the curb. There is some real significant issues. There's no ADA compliance on Main Street. In fact, the crown on the road causes out of compliance. So there's a lot of significant concerns. The idea behind the grant was to invest the money to improve economic conditions and to lift our businesses up. So we got a $5 million contribution. We're probably going to spend about $900,000 of our street funds to do the project, and then we're going to use water, sewer, and storm to upgrade piping and lay in some fiber and some additional resources or infrastructure that will help our businesses be competitive and be inviting to bring people downtown. Was it the highest level of project that needed to be funded in our according to paver? No, you're 100% correct. It would be the stretch of road between Thornton and on Row River Road in front of the car dealerships, or Whitaker that comes over, goes underneath the underpass, goes by Bimart and that area, or 16th Street as Butch recommended. I mean, it's gravel on the north end where it turns into Ostrander. Those roads, but they weren't criterias for the grant, and that wasn't what we were directed to apply for. So I want to say thank you, and I'll guess we'll let Amber.
There we go. Thank you. Really appreciate your time, comments. Thank you.
And I would say if you haven't filled out one of those questionnaires, we do use them. There's little cards there too that have the address to all the information, meeting minutes, everything that you want to learn about Cottage Grove streets if you go to that website.